unchangeable perfection of God. The truth of your unchangeable nature, your divine self, is the journey of remembering. You're coming home to your unchangeable divine self. And as this divine beingness in its perfection is completely unchangeable from its perfection, even while that acceptance brings the yes through faith that this is the truth. At the same time, you are being called to surrender all that is seemingly temporary. Because everything that is unchangeable within you, the truth of you, has no relationship with anything temporary. It's an infinite, permanent, eternal state of love. And that love is hiding within the temporary form of limitation, which is completely run by the belief in death, the belief in time. So as each beloved walks in the journey of remembering, every day, every moment is a choice between the permanent, infinite truth of your divine existence, your divine self, and the choice of that truth, or the choice of the temporary identity that is made from the belief of separation. To realize that the made-up self, and to accept that the made-up self has absolutely no resemblance to the divine truth. And the thought becomes, how could this be that it has no resemblance? Haven't I had any influence on my own divine self? Well, the I that is asking the question believes in an identity that is, by its very nature, lives in the belief of being flawed, of being wounded or damaged, or needing repair of some kind. And the divine truth of your exquisite true self is in need of no repair, in need of nothing, because it is perfection, whole and complete, as the reflection of God. The self-made self that has been carried through lifetimes has its own agenda. And its agenda is to prove that it is right, that it is completely in the realm of making sense that the self-made identity overrides in its determination, that it overrides the truth and continues to want to prove its worth. And instead of giving the false identity the permission to prove its worth, which has no value because it can never be proven because it's not the truth. And putting all of that intention and attention to proving the worth of something that is without value is the main delay to return to love. It's just a delay, and it's been delayed through all lifetimes. But there is also, besides the delay, all the trying to prove of worth of a false identity is the main culprit of pain and suffering. It's where the pain and suffering survives and lives. All of love is calling to no longer give loyalty to a false identity. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime has been spent in protection and in defense. And there is no redeeming value to that defense. Imagine your life never needing to defend anything. That you would completely be at rest in the beautiful confidence of God's will. That there would be nothing within you that could evoke anything to defend. In the beautiful teaching that speaks to turning the other cheek, this teaching has been interpreted through perception of the ego that has made a declaration of its weakness, of its cowardness. And it is the strength of God. To turn the other cheek is to say, there is no power in conflict. There is no power in disturbance. There is no power in the belief of problems. I can turn the other cheek because it means nothing. There's nothing to defend, nothing to protect. And the divine is freed. In all of the different ways that there might be a perception of defense, imagine having words thrown at you that are supposed to annihilate, and they're returned and dropped away because there's nothing to defend, nothing to bring honor to or prove. The perfection of love cannot and will never be proven. And then behind that dropping away of defense is all the joy. The permanent state of joy that you truly are, that has no reason not to bubble through. Where is the joy of that natural state? It's in hiding. Because the ego is constantly saying, it's dangerous out here. There's lots to worry about out here. And so joy waits because it's being held back. And it must have the yes to come forth. It must be invited. It must be wanted. All joy, all peace, all harmony, all resting is in being undefended completely. What would not be joyous in being undefended? In finding out that the kingdom that you thought you made out of an identity first reveals itself as not a kingdom, but a prison. And then in the spiritual journey, you actually discover that the door was never locked. And you can leave your wild imaginings and your self-made kingdom any moment at all. But everything that was made in the lifetimes of the belief of separation, all of them stay in the cell. And you walk through the door. Happily naked, joyously naked, and ready to live, ready to completely love because you are all love. undefended. Because there are no enemies, because there is no death, because there is nothing to know, only love. And in this moment of love, the willingness to affirm consciously in this moment that the universe is all love. All that exists, all that is true, is all love. And in this moment, the willingness to accept and affirm that this sanctuary is filled with love. That nothing else can have any sense of reality except the truth of love. The acceptance in this moment that there is within a life force of God, and that life force is your true life, your eternal existence, your divine spirit, the truth of your true self. It's a fact of love. Acceptance and freedom. In that light, singing, praying is priming the heart for the joy to be released, for the acceptance of sacred teachings and the willingness to be transformed by sacred teachings, by the light, that the power that brings the sacred teachings into manifestation. And releasing and returning truly to the source of your existence. Returning only in your own awareness, because you've never left. You've been on a journey without distance to a place you never actually left. And then the nightmare ends. And the truth awakens. Returning to the source is the healing of the heart. Returning to the source is where the healing starts. Releasing all the pain is the way to reach your heart. I'm opening myself for the healing here to start. Returning to the source is the way to find your home. The way is bright and clear if you trust you're not alone. Releasing all the past is the way to find your star. It will guide you, it will lead you to the source of all you are. There is nothing that God, the source of all love, will not give to you. The power of God will give you every truth, every bit of strength, the courage. All the doors are opened in your willingness and in your wanting. I'm opening myself for the healing here to start. That is the yes of the everyday. Every day, I'm here for healing. I'm here for remembering. I'm here, ready to return. On the path of light, all divine beings open our hearts so that we can learn to be love. On the path of truth, everyone is called to pay attention so that we can all be together, so we can praise in the truth of love itself. Let us all surrender to the heart of our Blessed Mother. In this moment is the moment of humility, the willingness to embrace forgiveness and of offering charity of love itself. Let us all keep moving in this moment of truth, following the light of love, the teachings of love, and to firm ourselves in charity. Let us follow the truth, only the truth. All of us united, let us sing and dance so the divine will materialize. Let us all go walking on this path of all divine beings, following and living with faith in our hearts, and following the ways that all divine beings have brought. Oh, my Divine Mother, you are the comfort, and you give me love and faith and health in this moment and in every moment. Nos caminhos do Senhor, Jesus Cristo Redentor, abriu nosso coração para podermos seu amor. Nos caminhos do verdade, há que prestar atenção, para estarmos todos juntos para louvar o coração. O coração de Maria, vamos todos entregar. Esta hora da humildade, do perdão e caridade. Vamos todos nos seguir nesta hora da verdade. Temos o Santo Cruzeiro para afirmar e caridade. Vamos seguir a verdade, vamos todos reunidos. Vamos cantar e bailar para o divino materializar. Ó Virgem Mãe Divina, vós sois o conforto meu. Dai amor, fé e saúde para podermos chegar. On the path of truth, every beloved walks with all beloveds. dropping keys. The small man builds cages for everyone he knows, while the sage, the teacher, the master, has to duck his head when the moon is low, and keeps dropping keys all night long for the beautiful rowdy prisoners. There is the ego's small man that builds cages for everyone. That is the way of separation. That each one builds a cage for those that they consider to be familiar. Every time there is a belief of separation, every time there is a identification with knowing, there is actually that wish to build another cage. The element of knowing that is the most restrictive is that everyone's knowing is exclusive to that beloved. There is no truth in illusions. There is no truth in knowing. So each beloved has their own diverse story of knowing. But with every knowing, there has to be a not knowing that is projected. So if you know, then whoever is there as the projection must not know, or there wouldn't be a reason to know. There has to be a division. Even though the ego can look like it's looking for allies of agreement, but the agreement can only be in your own knowing. No one is looking for an ally to be in their knowing. Everyone is looking for an ally to be in your own knowing. And this is where all the pain lives. True healing comes from true correction. And what is it possible that could be corrected or needs correction except knowing? It's really what stands in the way of the correction, but there really wouldn't be a need for correction if there wasn't already a whole identity with knowing. And what love is calling you to is that when you cease to confuse interpretation with fact, you're available for love's healing. The same thing, interpretation instead of fact is the same thing as illusion instead of truth. Interpretation has to come from information, experience, and information that has been gathered within the world of illusion. And it's an amazing storehouse of information. Having walked through 100 lifetimes, 100,000 lifetimes, there's a lot of knowing that is gathered. And yet God is calling everyone to stop confusing interpretation with fact, opinions with truth. It doesn't have to be a battleground, for sure. It doesn't have to be a battleground, but the knowing has been held until the calling to love. The knowing has been held as legitimate, and that you've worked really hard at gathering a whole reality that is called your reality. But it doesn't have any reality there. There is such a deep fear of not knowing that it seems like it would be the worst thing that could ever occur. What is the alternative to knowing? It's just being. The fear shows itself as the fear of dementia, the fear of Alzheimer's. What would I be without being able to function in my mind? God will never leave you without. But the knower wants to know what that means. What do you mean you're never going to leave me without? You're leaving me without a mind or a brain? For what? But until you actually enter and say, yes, take me wherever, you won't be able to taste the brilliance of being. And that's you. That's your divine self, waiting to be met with joy. There's a test for peace. You can test yourself in any situation if it's a possibility of opening for peace, or if it's in the direction of being disturbed or unpeaceful. So in every situation, if you react or want your way to be right, even in a subtle way, just by believing that you are right and something is wrong and you want to be right, in that place, you are affirming the illusion. Because in that moment, you have this divine opportunity of turning toward the power of truth, of fact. And it is waiting for you to surrender your reaction, surrender your perceptions, and ask to see the truth in any moment. Not because you want to see the truth because you want to prove you're right, but because it's your journey. It's your journey back to love. That you don't want to live in reactions anymore and being right, because it's where the pain and the suffering is. It may not be right in that moment that you recognize it as painful, because the ego is diligent enough to give you a little boost of being happy that you're right. But it always comes back to a place of feeling the separation from love. To ask in any situation. So this is what makes the everyday so rich with learning, because all day long, every day, you have all of this opportunity, this schoolroom, to make a choice. So I wrote down the question: what is your reaction to any situation? Is there enough faith within you to question your reactions? Nobody else is going to question your reactions. But when you want to come home to joy, when you want to come home to harmony and peace, and you want to walk out of that jail cell and recognize that the door is open, then the question, the inquiry becomes loving. It is your gift to yourself that you would question. What is your reaction? Is it anger, irritation, disturbance? And only when you're willing to not know, can you proclaim truth. When you've surrendered any reaction that you have to anything. Imagine that love looks so upside down from what you think it is within the world. So within the world, you have believed that eventually knowing is going to bring you to love. That you're honing an identity and a way of being. And it's going to bring you to love eventually. But actually, when you ask the question, what am I believing in? What am I reacting to? What do I think I know? That's actually the love that is coming through, because it's the truth of who you are, that actually questions. I asked a question yesterday: what if you never had anything to give as advice or knowing to anyone again? What if you had no knowing that you think you would have known about? That you would be with anyone and put them into the hands of God and ask for God's guidance to be of service, but not to know anything personally. And that you would have already stepped back because God was leading. And you had absolutely no care, no energy to have anybody know what it was you thought you knew? Or what if you were praying for remembering and you prayed so deeply that Holy Spirit showed up? And as the Holy Spirit shows up, and you recognize that God is right there. And the Holy Spirit says, what is it that you're wanting? And your heart says, I want to come home. I want to walk through the door. And I want to be free. And the Holy Spirit says, perfect. Just put everything that you know into this basket over here that's going to be part of a burning ceremony later. Put everything. Every identity you've had, every idea that you think you know, every talent that you think you have, and every habit that you have developed because you think it is the way. Imagine that you no longer have the capacity to tie a bow because you had an idea that you believed you knew the right way to tie a bow. And now it's in the basket. And you have nothing to tell anyone about anything. Do you hesitate to put everything in the basket? Or do you gladly just take it all and put it in the basket? Okay. That hesitation, which is everybody's hesitation, more than likely, is the hesitation that is in the everyday. Because every day, as you ask for guidance and I don't know what's most helpful, that's what you're choosing. You're choosing the shedding. And it becomes so delicious to not know. You have known that you thought you were separate, and that's all that you're letting go of, is all the different ways that you have believed that you are separate, and you're not. I brought this because I was called to read something that I wrote in healing. It doesn't make sense in its outline because it was just love that was stirring. There is nothing to plan. This was my basket. I cannot have tools and plans to work with. I cannot. I surrender all ideas of working. Anything that is not love. I do not and I cannot work with illusion. I cannot. All I have to do is say yes. Be yes. Yes, 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 yes. No swords, no battle. Only illusion battles illusion. There cannot be a battle in love. I am the child of God, and I do will there be light. I don't know. There are no forces to be protected from. There is no darkness. There is no evil. God is only love. There is no evil in God. There is no evil in you. Everything else does not exist. Only love. This is just everything that starts going into the basket. Doesn't matter that you don't fill the basket up right away, but it's that willingness, that finally recognizing where the pain is coming from. It's coming from the mind that believes it knows, and it's unloving, and it has no intention of communion. Its main purpose is to prove worth and to control. But it's all fear. It's all been honed to keep you basically in terror. There's a relationship with entitlement, which seems really strange. Entitlement is part of the knowing. It's an entitlement that says, I have more to offer. I have more better ideas. I have better solutions. I have more. And that entitlement says, I have to make everyone do it my way. But in truth, it's all fabricated. The secret belief from behind, because there's all these layers of illusion, and one of the layers of illusion says, I have worked at this. I have worked to be the one who knows, and it should be listened to. And others should be following what you believe. This is where all wars come from. I think I'm right. You have to follow what I think. And if you don't, there is resentment or separation of some kind. But that's what wars are based on. And this is about no longer believing that war has any truth. No facts, just illusion. The illusion of pain. If you wake up in the morning and you declare, because you want to be at peace, because you want to be at joy, that today I will judge nothing. Just for today, I will judge nothing. Nothing that seems to be different, nothing that seems to be, and there's no conflict. I will judge nothing. I will have no opinions. I will not allow any conclusions or assessments. I will judge nothing, because everything that I am at war with is in my own mind. There never was anyone out there that was the problem. It was just my knowing. That's all. And that's where the pain is. Why does it always bring anger or resentment or irritation? Because that wanting to be right also believes in guilt, believes that guilt has value, that when you're not right, when others are not right, they deserve to be guilty. All of it is all fabricated. The teacher, the sage, the master is dropping keys because there's no point to this. There's nothing to know. You see somebody who is following a way that they feel called to, and there's an urge within that wants to say what's wrong with what they're doing, instead of the realization that no one knows what anyone's journey needs to look like at all. What they need to walk through for their own learning. When there is no knowing, there's no more worry. There's no more fear out of not being in control. And there is this beautiful resting place that opens, that has absolutely no concern about anyone's journey or the belief that you know what their journey should be, because they're both painful. It's both just the two sides of the coin. And what a place of freedom that is, to not know what anyone's journey needs to look like for them. That you have the power to put into the hands of God every situation, every beloved, and then you rest. You rest in that love because they're in the hands of God. How could they be more graced? How could they receive more blessings than to be put into the hands of God? To have your loyalty, your service, your offering of holding and giving everyone that you know into the hands of God is the great gift of love. Because if you don't put them into the hands of God, you're basically saying, no, I'm in charge. Let's leave God out of this. They don't need to be in the hands of God. I know what they need. I know what they're about. I know what it's for. And that's where all the fear is. To take that leap of faith to put them into the hands of God. Everyone. It's an offering of love. It's what the beloved who came as Jesus, it was his demonstration. He judged no one. Even in the acting out of the crucifixion, he judged no one. And he gave them all to God. He blessed each beloved that was so filled with rage and anger and fear. And he poured his compassion and he gave them to God. And he reveled in their perfection. He reveled in their innocence. And he didn't know anything of their identity or anything else. He saw them as the innocence of God. And he gave them to God. And that is the teaching. That everyone teaches. But what is it that is being taught? Is it, I'm right and I know the right way of this and that and this and that, or I don't know anything. I don't know what's best for anyone, and I don't know what their journey needs to look like, and how can I have an opinion? I don't know what this journey needs to look like. And in that exquisite humility, the joy begins to come bubbling through. Because without the knowing, there's no defense. There's nothing to defend. And you're no longer putting value on beliefs that have no value. You're returning to the source because you've let go of the knowing. The knowing is not just the blatant knowing of things. It's the belief that there are differences and that what you have developed is somehow going to keep you safe. But in actuality, your safety is in being undefended. Nothing that you've known is where your safety is. It's actually in the not knowing. It's actually in being undefended, which are together. To be undefended is to not know. When you're in a defense of anything, or anybody is defending something, what would they be defending except what they think they know? Love is calling you to no longer be the slave of good and bad, and right and wrong, and light and dark. When you give your allegiance to right and wrong, and good and bad, and light and dark, you are giving your allegiance to illusion. So no one can be right and no one can be wrong. Everyone is learning. And you don't know what their journey needs to look like. And you don't know what yours needs to look like either. And in that is the joy of surrendering. And in that is the joy of being guided. That you have at your beck and call the being of love that has been assigned to you through every lifetime as you've walked in the belief of separation. You have had a divine guide, a spirit guide, if you want to call it, an angel. It doesn't matter what category you put it in. It's a guide that only can give you truth. The guide cannot join you in knowing. It only brings truth, which is why most beloveds resist guidance, because the knowing is so tempting. But the more that you open to guidance, the lighter your heart becomes. And the more confident you become in being undefended, because you're no longer so worried about outcome. You're beginning to truly trust that it's in the hands of God because you're following the guidance that is most helpful. You are now choosing the way of love because love is pointing the way for you. When your guide whispers to you, don't worry, this isn't a friendly reminder. This is a correction couched in love, but still a correction. Really, don't worry. There is nothing in worry that has any truth. So just hearing the voice of guidance saying, don't worry, is the blessing of the universe. When you hear the voice of guidance that says, don't speak, this is also a blessing. It means listen, pay attention, learn. Learn because that's why you're here on this earth plane, learning the truth of love. When you are resistant to something and you have decided already that you don't want to go someplace, for example, and then your guidance, your guide says, go. Do you listen to your dislike, your no, or do you go? That's the learning of faith and the learning of trust in the guides that have been sent to you. Your ego has had an opinion about not wanting to go to whatever this going is. And that's the habit, is to follow the likes or dislikes that are personal opinions. But your guide is saying, go. And this is exactly what you have been praying for, is to open to the realms of love that will make the journey so much easier. But it's not going to align with the ego. It's not. It's not going to align with the ego in any way. So all of the likes and dislikes, that's why it's so helpful to voluntarily surrender the belief of likes and dislikes, because they are a false state of opinion that the ego has developed. And when guidance begins to say to you, go or don't go, or wants to lead you because you've been praying for that, the resistance is going to come from the ego that says, I had another idea, and I know. There is a terrific, immense freedom that begins to emerge into your awareness as you let go of knowing. And the most amazing thing about knowing is that it has so many layers that you start letting go of knowing and it just keeps opening. Wow, I really thought I knew a lot. I mean, centuries of opinions, history, stories, identities, laws, agreements, cultures, all that I've carried in the belief of knowing. And everybody has carried them. But they're the misery makers. Because the illusion, the ego has no other intention except misery, separation. There's a place in learning of love that is the acceptance of being ignorant. And when you come against this realization that you really see your whole idea of everything is ignorant, it's a leap of faith, because I spent lifetimes, but certainly this lifetime, honing at least a decent identity. And that's where being undefended really begins to open. Not to defend that production of an identity, not to defend it anymore. And to realize that it's just the ignorance, not stupidity, but the ignorance of truth. And that love is wanting to offer you the truth constantly, constantly. To live in that honesty, to live in the gentleness, to live as kindness, to live as the forgiveness itself. And to trust in the power of God to hold you in every moment, to lead you in every moment. And that you're ready to walk out of that self, out of the kingdom that you thought you made, and to truly recognize the keys that are being dropped all night for the rowdy prisoners that we have all been. The prisoners are rowdy because they're screaming, "I know," and battling with each other to be the knower. And all you have to do is drop the stuff into the basket of what you thought you knew. And you'll never miss it. That's the great surprise. There won't be any crying. There won't be any sense of loss. You won't be bereft of anything, because as you drop everything into that basket of your old identity, you're meeting your divine self. You're meeting the glory, the perfection, the innocence of the perfect child. Not a child because you stay in a identified child body or anything, but a child because every day is new, because every moment is innocent, and there's nothing to achieve. You are everything, completely. Do you believe that you teach? Do you believe that you are teaching through the guidance of love? Because that's what's calling to you, is to let your heart open and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. for the love to express itself. But in that love, there is no personal. There is no payoff for the illusion at all. Only love. And all of the personal attachment has disappeared. And it's only love. And you welcome the keys that opens the door. And you welcome the basket to toss everything into. Even if it's like taking a shower and every day a little bit more skin comes off, throw it in the basket. And be happy that there's a basket to throw it in. Not because you need a basket, because it's the righteous way of remembering, is by letting go of what you thought you knew. There is no judgment day. There is no judgment of you as what have you done right and what have you done wrong, and how long did it take you to remember, and how many side trips did you take, and how arrogant were you, and how self-involved were you, and how angry were you, or anything else. No, none of it. You forgive yourself for the pain that you caused yourself. And it disappears because it was a mistake. It wasn't true. You remain the love of God. I've been reading this prayer, so I'm going to read it again. Starting with, do you believe in what you know? If everything you think that you've made of your talents and ambitions and even the personality self were made in arrogance, do you believe you can decide what's truly helpful? How do you know what's truly helpful if your ego mind is devoted to arrogance? When true humbleness dawns, you can no longer tolerate doing or speaking anything unless it is obviously coming from the alignment with Spirit. It is only the Spirit's use of words and deeds which are truly helpful. The Holy Spirit will use your words and deeds for what is truly helpful as you surrender. Yet, in order to use our words and our deeds, everything must be given of ourselves. Everything must go into the basket. This is very humbling. Your true helpfulness is under the control of the light of the Christ. And this is the experience of complete joy. Because you are returning to your natural state, your true state, your beautiful, complete light. Accept the will of God in true humility, and all you think you made will disappear. And love will take the place of self-deception. We lay aside the arrogance which proclaims that we are damaged, guilty, afraid, and we lift our hearts in true humility, in surrender to our immaculate true selves. The power of your yes is in your surrender. We lay aside anything that proclaims that we are damaged, guilty, or afraid, because none of them are true. You are the light. You are the way. You are the innocence that has no knowing that needs to interfere. It's just being love, resting in love as one.